No time to explain, warrior. The battle of all time awaits!
Back when I first enlisted, I was green as my uniform. By the time my unit got to the Ardennes, I thought I'd seen everything. But nothing could prepare me for Valhalla. Here they come, like ants at a picnic. Utgar's invited a lot more of those things to this party than we were expecting. And if we don't cut off the supply...
Maybe we cut you, Green Man. Now we stop you.
Tips on the big ugly!
Dibs?
I believe he wants to fight the troll by himself.
When you fell out of the ugly tree, did you hit every branch on the way down? Pretty fast for a big fella. Guess it's true. Trolls really do smell as bad as they look. Going up.
Are you done grandstanding?
Yeah.
You're unbelievable. You know that? It's like this is all some big game to you.
War is always a game. It's just that the loser doesn't get to walk away from the table.
You were brought here because you were supposed to be a hero.
I was brought here to do a job.
You don't care about winning this war or defeating Utgar.
You want to know what I care about? Men. Brothers. Who I left in a mud hole half a world away from their homes. That's who I care about. And if we win this war, I get to go back and try to save them. Those drones had mud on their feet. Any swamps or lowlands in this direction?
There's some marshland near Konkan's castle.
Then that's where we're going.
Drake! Drake! Maybe I was out of line a moment ago, but I want you to understand something. Utgar destroyed everything. Everyone I ever knew or loved. My world is gone now, and if we don't stop him, he'll do the same to yours. Because to me, this is the war that matters.
Ah, cripes.
Come forth in my service. Do not fail me.
You can rely on Mimring.
What about you, big guy? What keeps you in this fight?
I was created to fight, and so I do.
So what happens when we win this thing?
There seems little point in returning to my homeworld. I have been marked for destruction.
Destruction?
I am defective. I must be destroyed to prevent subsequent units from inheriting my programming malfunction.
So what was your malfunction?
I failed to destroy an enemy after he had been defeated and disarmed.
Among humans, that's not a malfunction. It's called mercy. It's a rare and valuable trait.
Really? How fascinating.
This is Konkan's castle. And I think we're in the right place. The question is, how do we get in there?
We don't.
That's quite an effective distraction.
Nice work, guys. Whoa! No matter how many times I do that, it's still a rush. Nice. Utgar must be going for the late 15th century dungeon look. Whoa. Okay, this is too perfect a setup. And how nice of Utgar to leave the well unguarded. This here is something that's just screaming trap. I'd better get ready for the unexpected.
Sergeant Drake Alexander.
Let go of me, you overgrown salamander!
Too late. I have control of the well, and now I have the glyph too. In fact, I think I'll let you live a few more moments while I channel the power of this glyph to my armies outside, so you can listen to the screams of your annoying little friends.
What's happening to them?
They seem to be increasing in strength.
This can't be good.
Most effective.
Huh?
Of course, it does limit my mobility a bit. But then, I can destroy you without moving an inch.
I love a barbecue, but not when it's me on the menu.
This is not over, human.
Looks like it is to me, you flying newt. Come on. Now where's that glyph thing? Time to even the odds. Go get 'em, team.
Now this is more like it.
Hey, we won, right? We captured the well?
Yeah, but Omnicron scouts have sighted orcs to the west. Come on, we've got to get moving.
Like I said, I thought I'd seen everything. But nothing could prepare me for Valhalla.
Welcome to ToV Live. It is Valhalla time. Welcome everybody to this ToV Podcast Special. I am Ryan, aka Tales of Valhalla, and I have with me tonight Jeremy, the last name call it, and with us, we have some of the original team that just made that webisode that you just saw. I was also involved in the quote unquote lost script episode that Jeremy's talked about in the past. And we're just going to dive right in and start introducing these gentlemen here with us. So who should I start? Todd, go ahead and introduce yourself. Who are you? What do you do?
I'm Todd, and here we go with the... I'm trying to play it for you guys. Can you hear that?
No. It's probably not connected.
It was beautiful. It sounded fantastic. Todd Kendall, producer on this thing. Josh and I work together to, I guess, make it happen.
Absolutely. And
That's
then,
all.
And then Dr. Kalamari, or aka David, who are you? What do you do?
I'm Dave McDermott. I'm a writer and former executive, and I've worked on just a whole bunch of. I worked in the original X-Men, and I've done some Transformers and some Power Rangers and Guardians of the Galaxy and Octonauts and just all kinds of junk. Not junk, wonderful things, entertainment for the world.
Awesome.
Yes, incredible things. And even when they were junk, I made them awesome. Okay.
Yeah.
But yes, Josh had me hank together some words for this wonderful presentation. So.
All right, welcome. And Josh, who are you? What do you do?
Everybody, happy to be here. My name is Josh. I was the producer at Hasbro who worked hand in glove with our games team to bring this Heroscape project to life. And I employed these two fantastic gentlemen here, Todd Kendall, my producer, and Dave, my writer, to help bring this thing to 4-color fruition. And I have all of the secrets for all of the stories of how this thing came to be and how these gents stepped into their roles.
Awesome. Well, Jeremy, do you have, I don't know if you've looked at notes, but if who they are, how about we explain the origins? Well, first, how did this, I'm just going to ask Jeremy real quick, how did this, and just in a minute explanation, Jeremy,
you gotta
how did this come about? Because this wasn't me. I'm just here. I'm just here for the ride.
This was a very fun collection of coincidences that all seemed to line up all at the same time. And the option to be able to interview these fine gentlemen here was presented to us first through David. He actually, we had a really fun interaction prior to all of this where he happened to message on the Wikipedia about his script work. And we were like, is it the David that wrote this, or is it someone posing as David? And so me and Dandelions, who work on the Wikipedia, we were like really confused. We didn't know who was answering or who was replying or sending this message. So we messaged David back, and then I actually went and verified, and I found out it is in fact the same David who wrote the webisode. And I'm just like,
still alive.
Dude, the guy who wrote the webisode is commenting on the Wikipedia. And I'm freaking out, right? I'm freaking out. I'm DMing everybody. I'm screaming. And I'm just like, this is crazy. This is so cool. Now, at the same time, I got contracted by Renegade Game Studios, who is now in possession of the license of Heroscape. They are publishing it with permission with Hasbro. They asked me to work with them on the lore. So they were like, hey, we're going to, hire you to write the backstory. You're going to help with the narrative and all that stuff. And I was like, oh, that is everything I've ever wanted to do in life. But thank you for the opportunity. Let's go ahead and get started. And the first thing I thought of was an interaction with David. And I was like, no, you know what? We actually need to start building bridges. We need to start connecting back to the people who worked on the franchise originally. And I was like, hey, David, here's the thing. I don't know if you know, but back in 2011, there was a huge fiasco on the Heroscapers forums over a lost webisode. That's what they call it. Lost webisode. And what it was David's first draft that had been leaked online 15 years ago. And I remembered this specifically. Because I was the one who posted it on the forums. And so then I'm like, bruh, hold up. We should ask David, like, what is the canonicity of this script? And, like, is this legit, or was this a project, or were you having fun with it? Like, can you help us understand the themes in the script? And me and Dandelions got to interview David and ask about the script. We found out it was, in fact, canon. That it was worked with Craig. It was worked with Hasbro. So as far as we know, that information belongs in the world of Heroscape. So me and Dandelions went ahead and took that information and have now officially put it in Heroscape. It is now part of the world. And while we were getting all that set up, Josh reached out and was like, hey, we should do a show. Because we actually got to talk to him too. Like I went out of my way to try to contact as many as I could. And then that's what I learned from David about Josh. And then I learned from Josh about everyone else. And then Josh was like, hey, let's all meet up. And I was like, done. So that hopefully was a minute. I don't know if I covered that in a minute.
Good.
But that is everything that led to tonight. So.
All right. Well, Jeremy, how about we turn back time a little bit then? How about we turn back time and go back to when these guys were like starting to produce these webisodes, back when Heroscape was just getting started.
Fresh.
Josh, why don't you start with this, okay?
I can take it away. And I know that my dear compatriot Todd might have to dip, so I'll get to him in a couple seconds. But the Wayback Machine. Many moons ago, I was an associate producer at Hasbro, and within that role, there was 4 people that basically crafted and built the intellectual stories and kind of worlds for all of the different Hasbro divisions. It was myself and 3 others. There was Steve Drucker, there was Mark Wiesenhahn, and then there was Cheryl McCarthy. And we 4 were basically responsible for working hand in glove with all of the different Hasbro divisions to help create lore, build story, come up with ideas, all of that good stuff for expressions into entertainment, most normally animation and other things, because I previously came from the publishing division where I did that for book content like Transformers and G.I. Joe comics and My Little Pony and all that good stuff. So when I joined this particular new universe, some of my first projects where I stepped into a Transformers project, which was Transformers Cybertron, and that was a 52 episode series. That was the third and final kind of it was the third series in the Energon cycle, and that was my first interaction with Dave McDermott. And Dave was our story editor and lead writer on Transformers Cybertron, and Dave helped bring kind of a group of writers together and parse out the different transliterated scripts to adapt them into English from our Japanese partners. So that's where Dave first came into the picture, where I started working with him on basically the back 26 of Transformers Cybertron. Came out to Los Angeles, did a whole big deep dive, worked with the writers team, and then we worked with our Japanese partners. So there was that project going on. Other things came in and out. And then another project that kind of surfaced was an anime that we were working on. That was it was the season 1.5 leading into season 2 of a Japanese anime called Duel Masters.
What? You worked on Duel Masters? Whoa.
So the original season, so the first season of Duel Masters, I didn't work on. I came in on 1.5.
That's so cool.
And then season 2 was all of our post-production. So for those who don't know, post-production is sound and engineering and mixing and voiceover and locking picture to VO, all of the kind of taking all of the disparate content pieces, putting it all together and getting it ready for air. All of our post-production was being done by a certain gentleman named Todd Kendall, who you have here on the show. So Todd was my post-production supervisor for all of Duel Masters. So I had writers teams, I worked with our Japanese partners, and then Todd was the guy who was responsible for voice casting, doing all of the write the music, doing the mix, making sure everything sounds right. Is the voice too blah, 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 all that good stuff. So Todd was helping me deliver Duel Masters, and while Dave was writing Transformers, but Todd was helping deliver Duel Masters to Cartoon Net. So we were on our schedule to deliver, I think it was 26 episodes. I don't remember, but I think Duel Masters Season 2 was 26. So that's how Todd came into the picture. So now I have these 2 amazing gentlemen doing 2 very different roles within our world. So I had writing and content, and I also had post-production, which did all of the nuts and bolts of making a cartoon. Because there's a ton of different stuff that goes into that. Now, meanwhile, Hasbro at the time, we had a Japanese agency. They were called DLE, Dreamlink Entertainment. They've thus far gone public. They had an IPO. They've been sold. But we had these essentially 2 agents in Japan. The main guy, his name was Shiki, and my counterpart over there was named Tani, Tani. And Tani and I, we would always talk back and forth about like what new anime was out and what was cool and what was happening. He would send me stuff, and because they were our go-to partners to find studios. In fact, they were the instrumental in locking in Gonzo for Transformers and also for GI Joe Sigma 6, which I produced. So Tani and I are talking, and he would always send a bunch of stuff to us. And at one time, he sent us, like a DVD of material. He sent us this one that had this beautifully animated sequence of this very long, very elongated, slightly cel-shaded style that was this great reel. And I was like, I'm going to keep that off to the side because that would be really fun. Because I'm always trying to come up with new stuff. Battle Beast or Gem and the Holograms or G.I. Joe or some other stuff, like trying to cook up ideas. So that's all these things are happening. During all of this, our friends at Wizard of the Coast and Hasbro Games, they are approaching us and saying, "Hey, let's do more. What could we do together to help zhuzh our board games and our intellectual property?" And you've name-checked a gentleman named Craig, who was the brand manager and essentially the designer, the lead designer and kind of architect of Heroscape. Mm-hmm. He, along with the marketing folks at Hasbro Games, Milton Bradley Parker Brothers, they finally came together and said, we would like to spend the dough and do something that is an animation project to help drive the Heroscape intellectual property and start building the world. Because at the time, the game had lore. You had your little figures and you had your characters and your factions, but there was no real underlying or overarching kind of like larger story world. So they came to us, and myself and Mark Wiesenhahn, one of those guys, he mainly ran the games business. Like he did stuff with Monopoly and a whole bunch of things. We sat together and talked, and he was like, "Josh, take this. This is awesome for you." So I was like, "I'm in." So I sat with Craig. We worked out kind of the mechanics of it, what we wanted this thing to be, and how it ended up is that we figured out, that marketing was going to leverage this as sort of like over-glorified marketing collateral. This wasn't for sale. You weren't going to find this on Cartoon Net. It was basically mini-sodes, webisodes, as they colloquial. But like they were basically going to be given away. And so here was our challenge. I think we ended up doing 5. Was it 5? 6? I don't remember. 5? 5 of them, right?
It was 7 initially.
There was a bunch. So
yeah. It was set up. The scripts there were 5 scripts. I remember.
That's right. Yeah. So and there was I think there was an intro outro. Yeah. So what happened is I said, "Hey, I'm working with these amazing talented folks," and so I brought Dave in. I said, "Hey, Dave, can you write this for me?" And I said, "Hey, Todd, I got this thing that I'm going to be doing off the side of my desk. Can you help out?" And so budgets were set, and everybody came together, and we did a whole thing. So I know that. And Todd, tell me if you're going to leave so I can jump ahead. And
I'll let you know. I got you my safe word. I'll give you my safe word. Go ahead.
Cool. Perfect. All right. So we're building all of this stuff. And so we said, "Hey, what are we going to do? Let's do this." And we came up with a great story. And this is now myself, the Hasbro Games team. This is Craig. And this is Dave. We're all together kind of building ostensibly sort of a Bible about what these things are. And Craig has reams of material. Here's tons of data, and here's the characters we're focusing on. That was the real big one. We're going to be focusing on these guys. We had our main military hero guy, we had our Valkyrie powerful female character, and we had our robot. That's who we're focusing on, those 3. And here's our baddie, and here's all the tools, the toys essentially in the toy box. And the big challenge for us, and this is where it got a little hairy and where Dave did such an exemplary job, is, and you can chime in here, Dave, and talk about it, is it had to tell one story. There was a narrative, a beginning, a middle, and an end, but the entire series could potentially be run online in a non-contiguous fashion. So each individual little webisode also had to have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and not be a cliffhanger, because you might not know when you would see the next one because they weren't on any like scheduled release cadence. There wasn't like come back next week for the next one. It's just like whenever marketing decided to drop it, They did.
Right.
So that was like, so that's why I called my man Dave here and said, hey, like, let's do this thing. And so that was part one, was kind of like locking the story and knocking that out. That was a big one. Dave, do you want to chime in here?
No, I don't remember anything about it, so that's no. I told you Josh would remember everything, man. It was like doing, 5 or 7 individual episodes with a story arc. It was like doing a whole season of things, but cramming them all together into one short bit. And I just, I was thrilled to get all these pieces to play with, which was kind of amazing. And it was just, I love gaming, and it was an opportunity to do something. I think at that point we were aiming at a little older than most of what I'd been doing, for broadcast. So I was like, cool, I get to, maybe kill some people and say some dirty words.
We wanted to age this up a little bit. We wanted to, and that was that, and also that was Games Remit. They were essentially looking at this as not as like, this wasn't Monopoly, this wasn't Sorry, this wasn't Shoots and Ladders. This was their older collector targeted product that they also were looking at this as a potential springboard. That was the other part, is they potentially, Craig and Games Marketing and Hasbro, the larger org, they really thought about this as something that they could then go sell potentially as a series. So they said, hey, we're going to invest from a marketing perspective, because that's really what this was. This was a marketing spend.
Sure.
Nobody got rich off of this. Not even the guys working on it. Like, I basically had to beg these two dudes to help me.
You deserve it.
Like, please, dear God, help me, especially Todd. Come on, man, help the brother out. So I begged because nobody was getting rich, and I was on staff, and I seriously was not getting rich. So they were using this as a marketing expense to basically promote that expansion, whatever that expansion was called at the time, and they thought that those 3 main heroes, Man Out of Time, your kind of lost Captain America hero, your powerful Valkyrie, and your robot, your cyborgy robot guy, those were a good mix of heroic archetypes that you could say, okay, now Cartoon Net, Fox, WB, let's go and use this as our pitch material for a show afterwards. That never materialized, but that was the gist of it. And also, side note, there was a comic, or comics, right?
Yes. Yep.
So I worked on those. So the comics were also something that I was working hand in glove at the same time, because they were being crafted sort of in tandem with the series. They were sort of parallel pathing, and so we wanted to make sure all of those things talked. And I think those were also done as a promotional giveaway by another company called Konichi, and they were a creative development studio that I knew very well. They were a bunch of guys and gals that were spun out of Devil's Due, which was my licensee that did the G.I. Joe comic. So it's all connected.
It's all
Dave is writing the stuff. Then we kick everything over to Japan. Now, remember that weird, tall, cel-shaded, beautiful-looking animation style? Well, Tani, my friends at DLE, we hire that studio, and they do the full thing in CG. And this is why, and I actually reached out to Tani. He left the studio, but I reached out to him 2 days ago, and I said, hey, do you have any stuff, laying around? And unfortunately, everything, when he left DLE, he didn't take any files with him. But, we got multiple turns, and we got T-poses and models of everything, and landscape, the whole 9 yards. It was amazing. And so that would go back and forth between Games and us, and they'd approve it, and Craig would make notes, this is too green, or make his hair shorter, or his grappling gun isn't quite right, whatever. So that all happens, and we get all the episodes. And then my boy Todd shows up. Now this is where the rubber really starts to hit the road, because now we're on a schedule. Now it's basically hey, we have to deliver this thing. And so Todd here, he was out here in Los Angeles. Were you out here at the time? You were, right?
Yeah.
So Todd was out in LA, and I was. So Dave and Todd are both here in Los Angeles, where I currently am, and so is Dave. But I was still in Rhode Island. I was in Pawtucket. So we would be doing this bi-coastal, trying to get this project put together. But it was then now Todd's remit to basically find the voices, do all of the casting, write and contract for all of the music, and then basically craft all the special effects, sound, and everything, and put it all together. I have a very distinct memory of this. I really wish I could remember the year, and I probably could figure it out. But San Diego Comic-Con, the year before this comes out, Todd, we were on a super crazy deadline, and you came to Comic-Con because I was out for the show, and we went back to my hotel room. This is not the safe word. And you had a
don't tell that story. Stop.
Yeah, I'm telling a different story about Comic-Con.
Okay, good.
You had a CD of all the voice talent, and you brought it, instead of overnighting it because I was going to be on your coast, you brought everybody's takes with you to Comic-Con, and we just hung out and we listened and made the casting selects that day at Comic-Con, and then you left and went back and like hired everybody. It was I was like, we were doing it on the fly, man. And so then
that's impressive.
And then just like Dave is sending scripts, it's going to games, Todd is building the episodes. He's literally like, here's the thing, and I'm doing a thing, and there was an intro and outro, like from a theme song. That was all Todd. So like all that stuff came from his studio where he was building this stuff.
Takes a lot of work too.
And then that was going to games, and then games was approving or not, and then and then finally at the end of the day, whatever 5-6+ episodes, Todd delivered the final masters, and then that was all handed over to games essentially. And everyone, got their $5, and then that was kind of the end of that was like, here we go, and everybody crossed their fingers and hoped that this thing was really gonna like pop off. And it's taken however many years for Heroscape to kind of find its core, its consumer, its fandom. But this group right here, essentially, it was us.
Mm-hmm. We're the nerds. We are the nerds. So interesting. So I don't know, Todd, do you want to give any thoughts like during that process? Because I think I've everybody in the Heroscape community, I can really relate to your process of building this stuff, because it's what I do for Tales of Valhalla a lot. But anything interesting with it? Like when it came to just making the videos, here's the question: making the videos and understanding the story, was it just as important to understand the story and the world behind it to make those videos better, or were you just, I'm just reading the script and I'm just going with the flow with it?
I don't remember any of what Josh just said, by the way. It was all a blur to me. It was a dream. No. Honestly, it was.
How do you do this,
great.
Josh? How do you figure this out?
The whole thing worked out great. I mean, it was kind of all meant to be the way it all kind of worked, and the timing of it all was great. I'll try and go through everything I remember really briefly. Josh giving me more credit than I should. Josh made everything so easy to do. It was pretty simple. We kind of had a factory going prior to that, so it was kind of easy to fit right into it. And then getting the script, getting David's script and seeing I like the comedy. So when I saw it was like Bruce Willis from Die Hard. That's how I always saw the character.
Sure.
So the character was great. And the funny, not the funny story, but the story about getting Matt, who played the lead, was we went to our regular voice actors. Everyone, Josh knew everyone, and I went to a bunch of others that I knew as well, and we couldn't get the right one. I remember there were probably, I don't know if there were a dozen, but there were a dozen.
Yeah,
and then I was working with a buddy of mine. We were working on a pilot, and he was a guy that I've worked with before. Matt, it ended up being Matt Bellner, and I'm just like, hey, can I for shits and can I say shits and giggles? For shits and giggles, just I think I was in his car. We were in his car, and I'm like, just read these lines for me real quick. It was very, very low budge, and he did it. I'm like, all right, you're one of 12 that I'm going to show John, or I can't remember the number, but it just, the moment Josh heard it, he's like, that's it, that's our guy. And I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure that's the guy? He's like, yeah. That's the guy, and
Nice.
and it just worked out, and he knocked it out of the park, and everyone,
real.
you know, again, it all came together with David's writing and Josh just setting it up, and Matt kind of nailing it, and obviously the other actors did great as well. But yeah, it was kind of all meant to be. I thought it was going places. The moment we delivered it, I thought that, you know, Josh was just gonna bring it home, or not Josh was gonna hand it off, and it was gonna kind of take off, but it just kind of fizzled, right? I don't know what happened afterwards. I kind of, you know, left it alone, but I always thought I was going to come back.
Yeah, I actually felt the same. Like I had high hopes. This was, we couldn't have primed the pump better.
Yeah.
For like a series, and I think, you know, and Dave, you were more in it at the time than I think we were too, because Duel Masters was working. Our ratings were great on Duel Masters.
I didn't even know he worked on it, but I knew all about, yeah.
Boys action comedy was killing it. And that and we leaned hard into the comedy on Duel Masters, and that's what made that show work. That was started with Kevin Rubio and Charlotte and Eugene, and like we took it, and like we really went hard in the comedy, where like Transformers and our G.I. Joe Sigma 6 and some of our other boys properties, and Heroscape kind of fits in that, was very more traditional, just boys action, just full on, like down the road. And the guy who came into Cartoon Net, who like changed a lot of it, and he like did a lot of live action, and like he sort of changed the tenor of the org, that it like this really was something they weren't looking for at that time. And I think it was more of like, we couldn't sell the show because of what it was, and because it was also a board game. That was the other big hurdle, I believe, is that it wasn't an action figure line that had tons and tons of like, here's the range, and it like, the board game aisle was not necessarily like the hotness when it came to buyers, unfortunately. It is cool, and people love games, and the gaming community is monstrous now. Like gaming is huge. I know that very well. But 15, 12, 14 years ago, when this was coming out, gaming was still kind of like the weird stepbrother of the toy business when it came to entertainment. And that's what I'm saying. Not brand, not sales, entertainment. You couldn't necessarily say, yes, I really remember that episode of Chutes and Ladders. Boy, that episode was great. Or, holy smokes, did you see that new episode of Sorry? It didn't jive. So I think there was a couple things that we didn't quite, that the code wasn't cracked. But I will tell you, once more, the Bro, they did have some inkling of wanting to do more with Heroscape. So we did take it to licensing show. They tried to sell it to apparel companies, and like they really tried to get behind it in a big way. And just like with Duel Masters, they made toys. I do believe there was some talk about like making real toys for Heroscape at one time. Like in that discussion, like there was talk. And if that happened, it might have been a very different proposition.
Yeah, that'd have been great.
I think it's timing. I think that it wasn't an action figure line, but action figures were the sales was kind of down. Nobody had figured out what the next hotness was going to be. And I think in a way, they still haven't. I think, age compression, which is a phenomenon where kids are doing things younger and younger. So essentially what an 8-year-old used to do at one point, now a 6-year-old would be doing. I think that hit culture and the toy industry really, really hard. So we got to the point where, it was like 5 and 6-year-olds, and then 4-year-olds were buying the action figures. And the market just wasn't the same as it was back when we had X-Men and Spider-Man and Batman and all that stuff. That was really heavy-duty action figure driven. So I think, it was just timing on this. If board games had been then what they are now, I think that would have been a slam dunk.
100%.
But yeah, it was just, I think it was the right thing at the wrong time. And I think even now kids are, they're doing Minecraft and Roblox and not necessarily watching cartoons, and except unless they're very young. So I think, yeah, it's one of those things. As long as I've been in children's entertainment, I've been saying, "Wow, things are really changing right now." No, things are always changing. We've been in the state of flux since I walked in the door, and it hasn't friggin' changed. So, it's all very much changing.
And that was something that Todd and I worked hard on with our crew and team on Duel Masters. We didn't have to sell toys. That was the best part about that brand, because that was not a toy brand. They had the card game. The card game was making money hand over fist for Wizards. That was killing it. And the Wizards and the games group understood that the show was a brilliant marketing vehicle. Again, it was a marketing vehicle. Just get eyeballs on the brand, and if we can convert anybody to think this is fun, because we have cool dragons and we have fun game, there's a cool gameplay, whatever. But tell a great story first and have fun with it, and if sales follow, bonus. And so that really was, and we all had a really good time with Duel Masters because of that, because we weren't beholden to say, oh, I gotta sell the feature toy in this episode. Here's the new thing that's going to be on Walmart shelves. It was just a fun show that we did silly scripts and corny jokes and had fun with. And Todd and myself and the team at D-Spot who was doing the post-production, and our writers and our music guys, we all just basically cooked to make a funny show. Whereas Dave and I on Transformers, we had to shoehorn in, here's when this toy hits, now he's going to be in the show, write something to make it that a thing. And that was, there were very strict, on the rails guidelines for Transformers that we didn't really have with Duel Masters, which is why this team kind of was the best of all of us to put Heroscape together, because we all knew different parts and pieces of that world, of that business, for this particular kind of intellectual property.
Yeah, I had been from the second season on. I was the exec at Fox Kids on Power Rangers, and that was very marketing driven, clearly. And yeah, we literally, we would start with here's when this toy ships. We've got to work this, this character line into the show at this point. And that's really, really how the business was back then. And still is to a point that they're, driven. Yeah, you've really got to work those things in. And I remember on we had a show called Mystic Knights of Tir na Nog that we also did with Bandai, because they were it had problems, but yeah, that was when I was like, yay, we get to do swords and crap. But yeah, that was one where they were like, we need motorcycles in the show, and I'm like, well, this is about sort of a fantasy about medieval Ireland. I don't know where the motorcycles are going to come in. But yeah, we figured out a way to work in something. But yeah, working on a thing where there's tight schedule, toy-driven stuff is always a real challenge. But it's one of the things that I've always prided myself on. I think I can come up with a reason to put any weird marketing piece of bullshit into a plausible storyline. I think that's one of my unique talents.
That is a talent. Yeah.
That's right. I'm a sellout, baby.
No one's got to do it.
Joe Crazy 3193 in the chat saying, I believe that a show or a movie franchise can happen with Heroscape.
Let's do it.
I think so.
I got some time.
I think so as well, as long as a good story can be told, because so many people just rush into those things. I think we really need to take our time with it and make sure, because that could make or break the franchise as well. It's like what you were saying, Josh. You need to tell a good story, and I think a lot of days many creators are just missing that mark. They don't know how to tell a good story. So yeah, definitely. Like I hear Justin chat saying Minecraft is getting a movie and it doesn't look good. Well, judgment out for that until it comes out. Heroscape is set up perfectly.
The movie's going to make so much money.
It's going to make so much money just for being Minecraft.
Just for being, just for the title name. That's that doesn't.
It's half of the revenue. Half of the revenue is Minecraft fans, just because it's Minecraft. The other half of the revenue are Jack Black fans, because it's a Jack Black movie. They picked the right actor for it. It's just Jack Black. So
yeah, absolutely. All right. So, Todd, you still hanging on with us? For a
Yeah,
moment?
I was gonna say, having said that, what your last, let me know when we're moving forward on the next version of this thing. More than willing to do it. And having said that, I'll just say my safe word, which is harder, and I'm out. Right? Is that how do I? You get rid of me? Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. You
Todd,
guys are
appreciate you
great.
coming
Appreciate everything that's
Thanks
going
for
on.
stopping by. I really
Let me know if
appreciate
you, sure. Let me know if you need anything. And yeah,
I'd like to stay in touch
I'll
with
talk
you.
to you guys
sure.
later.
Later, sir.
All right.
I'll hit you up later, man.
Be in touch. All right. Take care, guys.
Hey, brother.
All right. Well, I think we're kind of getting into it, for the process of the questions. But when it comes to the legacy of Heroscape and the story and such, maybe we should dive a little bit more into that. At this present time, how would you ask this, Jeremy? How can this continue? We were kind of getting to it already. Yeah.
So the good news is Heroscape's back. I don't know if I haven't been talking about that every day I get a chance, but yes, Renegade Games Studios has acquired the license, and because of that, we do have a platform for the game now. Now, not in terms of getting an animation studio and all that stuff, obviously maybe will take some work, but they've been putting efforts into talking with local creators. We have many of the fans at the present moment. They are currently they make videos on YouTube, right? And the producer of Heroscape watches those videos, and she sends them Heroscape because they're making videos. It's just there's this really neat interaction system that's going on right now where we're able to celebrate the fandom of the game while making the game 20 years after the game came out. It's a good time. It's been a really good time. And especially, yes, with the fact that with the legacy experience, right? When I first joined Renegade, I wanted to make sure that I honored the source material in any sort of way I could. And so that's why I had to interview with David. That's why I had to interview with Josh before this show. I wanted to make sure I was visiting the people who worked at the franchise first. And I wanted to talk to y'all so I could get that energy and be like, okay, so what did y'all do with it? Okay, I want to do that too. I want to bring that to Heroscape. I want to bring that energy, the thought process, because all the stuff you were talking about, that's important to think about. It's important for the brand. So it's yeah, what can I do now to help? And before I started to do that, first thing I decided was, all right, what didn't get canonized? Because I'm what got missed? Because I feel like there was so much information that David had created for the webisode franchise that didn't make it into the main game. Now, after the webisode had come out, I want to say the game stuck around for 4 more years. It was Milton Bradley. I think you all were working with it when it was still with Milton Bradley around 2008. Yeah, because it jumped hands a lot. This game jumped hands a lot.
This was fully commissioned by and paid for by Hasbro Games, which at the time was Milton Bradley Parker.
Their subsidiary is Milton, I think.
Well, no. That was Milton Bradley Parker Brothers was just the sort of side name of what would eventually become Hasbro Games. They owned them outright.
Sure.
Just like Hasbro owns Wizards of the Coast.
Okay, that makes sense.
Milton Bradley Parker Brothers was just essentially different branding for that expression, but it was all Hasbro. All of it was Hasbro.
That makes sense. Because they started it, and then it went to Wizards of the Coast. They transferred all the production rights and everything to them. And it was around that point that things started getting shaky, right? Because love Wizards, obviously. They make so many things that everyone plays, but they decided that they wanted to focus on their core brands, and so they turned Heroscape into a marketing platform for Dungeons & Dragons, which was really frustrating for a lot of people because we were Heroscape has its own story, Heroscape has its own lore, Heroscape has its own characters and continuity. Why are you just bringing stuff from the D&D worlds? We already know, D&D's been around since the 70s, right? We don't need more D&D lore. And we were really frustrated about it, but they did the best they could, and then it was at 2010 when the game discontinued, right? 2011 is when I found David's script. And so, right, with all of that, it's being able to work with the game now, I've taken lore from David's script. I've discussed it with the lore council. We've implemented it now into the game. So you can go on the Renegade website, and if you look up Major Q11's biography or Major Q11's character bio, it directly references stuff from David's script. It was something we decided to do. Yeah, we decided to do that because, man, you wrote such a good script. I was mind blown.
Thank you. Like, I was happy with it too. I was really bummed when it had to change. I was like,
right, but in that time you had you. Here's the funny part. Out of everybody that had their hands in the pie, right? Everyone that had a chance to think, like, from my perspective as a fan, you were the one that created the most lore for Alpha Prime. You were the one that created the most lore for like all kind, and like I internalized all that info. But then I was still sitting there like, I don't know if it's canon though, because we had no idea because it was a first draft, so we weren't sure how that worked out. So yeah, that's why
I didn't know if it was canon either. If you recall,
now that I work on the lore team,
tell that story.
Now it's canon. Now it's canon. So we've taken.
There's a great quote from the great Dwayne McDuffie, who we lost a few years back, but he used to be fond of saying, "My fan fiction is canon," which it's always been kind of how I felt. I was like, I get to make up shit, and it actually matters. But no, I was putting together my just like refreshing my samples and things, and I was going through and I was like, which year did I do work on which thing, and just searching online, that led me to the wiki, which I had no idea that Heroscape had such a passionate following or anything like that. And so I'm looking on the wiki to try and figure out what year I did that. And there's this thing saying, there's this first draft script, and it's got all this background and all these characters, and it's got all something like, what? Who is going around saying that they made up all this shit? I wrote that stuff. That's got to be a fake script. There's no way that wasn't in there. And then I found my first draft script. I'm like, oh yeah, I did put that in there, didn't I? Never mind. It's here, and I did it, and okay. But honestly, I could not remember how much of that stuff I just freaking made up, and how much was in the stuff that I got from Josh. I was trying to find my original.
It was good. It was so solid info.
But before this project really became what it became, it did go through a couple different permutations to say, what is this going to be when it grows up? Because marketing at the time was still undecided about how to deliver this. And the website, the Heroscape website, which was going to be the main hub for all information for this particular intellectual property, was still kind of nascent and under construction, as it were. And so we were still batting back and forth, which is where that piece of content came from, was Craig's notes, plus all of the information we all got when we all got in the room together and sort of brainstormed what this thing could be and what the big heroic arc is going to be, and how we were going to introduce, our Valkyrie and our robot. How was all that going to come together? And so that sort of like that lost thing was part of what we, in the business, we build and you guys know this, we build our story Bible, and you kind of you start to craft kind of the foundational building blocks of what eventually becomes your scripts. So this was part of Dave's and our larger story Bible, kind of like ruminating on what the brand could be. And then once it was landed on that we were going to do these mini-sodes that were all going to have to be kind of cut up rather than one long contiguous narrative, which is the easy part. We were doing that already. Transformers, episode 1 goes to 2, goes to 3, and it all flows. Where we ended up realizing that this had to be episode 1, then maybe you might see 4. And then maybe you could see 3. But they all ended up at the same place where Big Bad gets fought at the end. So we knew that there was going to be like the open, and we knew there was going to be a close, but then all the kind of other 3 to 4 middle guys might be completely jumbled. So this first one was sort of like, let's ground ourselves. Then we went into the weeds of like cutting it strategically to, to create these mini things that could all then be kind of like Lego style, like blocked together to make one thing, which now everyone has seen, which is that 9 minutes. and all of those are the ones that like 3, 3, and 3. It was like 2 and 2 and 3s. Like those literally all just got cut up.
Okay.
Interesting.
But I managed to find the email that you sent me, Josh, when it was the notes on the first episode. And you're like, this is great.
Nice.
Everybody here loves it, but we can only use 7 characters. Which, that's one thing when you're working on all this stuff and there's all this backstory and lore, and you're like, cool, I'm going to incorporate all this. This is going to be so awesome. And then the realities of budget come in, but that was the thing. We couldn't. It was just way too expensive to do what we had. I mean, it was like Josh was saying, this was kind of a side project, and there just wasn't the money in it. And it was to just do that much. That's the thing when you're doing that sort of CG 2.5D kind of thing, you've got to build all those assets up front. And especially on a short project like this, you can't amortize that over a long run. So
we were sort of
that was kind of it.
We were kind of lucky that this is an army building game too. So you had the troll, and then you had goblins. So you have kind of like Control C, Control V, green monsters for the dudes to fight. And you also had our robot, and you had his legion. So you had like there's multiple robots, and you had multiple World War II guys. So like you had so again you the tools in the toolbox of like, here's your hero characters, here's 2 or 3 baddies plus the main bad guy, and then how do you use all of that in an appropriate way to sell the idea that this is a massive game that can have tons of characters on the board. It's every different character within the universe. And actually, you know what? I'm going to take that back, my earlier comment about marketing telling us we needed to do stuff. Because I now distinctly recall having to have Dave weave in our main character's katana and his grapple, because those were the features of his gameplay was his sword and his grappling arm thing. And so we specifically had to find ways to use those in animation organically. It didn't feel cheesy.
Right.
And so that was a dictum, that was a dictate from marketing to say, you have to tell people that this dude has a grappling arm. And you
guys didn't even notice, did you?
You didn't exactly so well that you didn't quite get that was a thing that was kind of handed down from the guys that held the purse strings to say, go do that. So sort of all of those world things that are very specific to the game pieces themselves were probably notes from Hasbro Games and Craig and the marketing team to say, make sure you mention that, or that guy has a gun that's called X, or the Valkyrie has a special, her move or her spear is called a thing. Talk about that. So there might be those beats in there, but that, again, Dave, who I had such such wonderful experiences with working on Transformers, again, telling a great story about plastic robots and giving them personalities.
They're not robots. They're mechanical aliens.
Right. Sorry. Okay.
Even though they say robots in disguise, but still.
having them have emotions and pathos, and you caring. You really cared about Optimus, and you cared about Hot Shot, and you cared. So that was the real gem of it, working with Dave and the rest of our writers, is making sure that you watched those episodes and the conflict between Optimus and Megatron felt real, and their final battle meant something. Like, we worked hard at that. And so doing that in such a teeny tiny space for Heroscape was a hard thing to do, which was the fun of it.
And just so everybody knows, and like the current live stream, I do have some thunderstorms coming through my area, so for the audience and for you guys, if all of a sudden everything goes kaput, that's because the power's probably out or something. So I just wanted to give that disclaimer in there just in case something happens. Hopefully nothing will. Okay. But I just wanted to let you all know that. No, that's.
And also, I just if anything happens, I just want to say to whomever is watching and for posterity that Todd, he actually wasn't. I wish he was still on the stream for this, but he actually went back into the Wayback Files and he dug and went through old servers and zip drives and all of the old technology, and he actually found a beautifully uncompressed full version of the series.
Just
y'all heard it here first.
Just send it to us too.
Y'all heard it here first.
It is beautiful and it sounds great and it looks great. And I just emailed it to our two fantastic hosts that can now put that on the internet and have that now be forever out there in the universe.
Bro, that's exciting.
That is sweet.
That's cool. So we can actually see. I mean, the audio quality's still good.
Tell you, still very good.
So
the compressed version. So the compressed version, which I know, Jeremy, I think you might have uploaded.
Yeah, that was the only one I could find.
So when I built my website 100 years ago on iWeb, I built it in iWeb. Now that is old timey. I had to go into QuickTime and compress it to a degree that is like basically like it's like a GIF. It's like filmed. It's like a potato, and that I believe was the only place that it was native for a really long time was on my site as a QuickTime movie. That might have been what ended up in your hands on YouTube, but those links are all dead because my website's just old. But now there is a beautiful copy that can go on YouTube, and you guys can. Awesome. It can now live in posterity for all of the fans.
720. Wow.
Wow. Jeremy, I'll pass that ball on to you. You upload it on your channel. Whoa! I can hear the sound. Whoa! My goodness.
Oh, sorry.
Sounds and stuff. Yeah, I'll.
Is it coming through? Hang on.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to share?
We're not anymore. Or something.
I don't know if you want to share just so we can see the visual of it.
Oh yeah, I can share, can I?
Yeah, you can. Well, I think you can. Yeah, I believe you can. I know I can.
I don't know if because you're streaming from Discord, right?
Yeah. Well, it shouldn't matter though.
I should be able to screen share. Yeah.
Yeah, screen share just via the Discord chat here. Yeah. Okay, let's see. See if
well, okay, wait.
Let's look at it real quick.
Don't look at.
Now, for anybody who's listening to this on Spotify,
don't
at least it sounds good. At least it sounds good.
I have too many tabs.
So we're just gonna watch this for just like
just a little bit.
Yeah, a few frames.
Let me know how loud I need to get it because I don't want it too loud and it burns everyone's ears.
That's good.
There we go.
Wow, look at that.
So much better.
Oh my gosh, look at that. Garanex says, "Say I need to schedule a watch party for that, or do it on TV some night." Well, we could plan that for sure. That's really nice. Nice quality. Wow. Look at that man's face. What a chin.
No time to explain, warrior. The battle of all time awaits.
That is.
There it is.
There it is. Clear as crystal. Look at that.
Back when I first enlisted, I was green as my uniform. At the time my unit got to the Ardennes.
Oh, Jeremy, one thing though, your microphone, I think, is like taking the place of, or the audio of this thing's taking the place of your microphone, I think, or something.
Because the mic likes to fall.
Yeah, okay.
The mic likes to fall while I'm talking, and then I don't notice, and so I'm talking as the mic is leaving my voice range. But this is amazing.
Oh my goodness!
Okay,
look at those Morrow.
Pause it for a second right there.
Yeah, pause it. Yeah, go back to those Morrow.
Okay, this I will again. This is no, it's that you just pause it. Maybe I'll eat you, Green Man. That line right there. Mm-hmm. I have Dave and I. We worried that line and went back and forth on that one throwaway for probably a week.
There's
I'm
some
not
really
kidding.
some really
I
good
have
one-liners in this song.
very vivid memory of that one line being like so like it because we were trying to land the gag and because he's a smartass, our main character. So like we're trying to land the gag and have him be
Drake.
like Drake's trying to like give him the business and like trying to come up with the right like bad guy like jibe, but he's like a big dumb troll and who like takes it. That line was painful. It was so painful. We finally landed on this because it had to move. And also the interesting thing about this is a lot of it there was not a lot of lip flap. If you watch it, there's again you don't have to worry about this later, but if you're watching it, Drake, you can see like he does talk like but you can see his mouth move and stuff. But a lot of the other characters, it's all sides.
Like
So
side or off
basically
screen.
what that means is that it's just like the four of us recording things just in a booth. Like the bad guy's mouth isn't
Pause
moving.
right there, Jeremy. That looks awesome.
Yeah.
Wow.
So like
Look
it's
at
just
that, look at that
people
Krug.
talking, but we needed to find the timing to hit it right between when Drake talks, he talks, and then Drake jumps into action.
Wow.
So there's a again, it was super. The timing on these are so right there. The sword that was marketing note.
Nice.
We had to find that was a marketing note. Make
Raylan.
sure we show her power.
We haven't been able to see these sword strikes in 15 years.
Trying to find those right little beats in like the seconds. Where normally, Dave and I work on 22 minutes. So that was a real like editorial gymnastics to try and make that fly.
Wow.
That is so cool. Oh man. I'm so excited to see
Raylan,
this.
yes, you are. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh, and look at Q10.
Major Q10 picks it up by the head. And just... Yes, let's go. This is so much nostalgia.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh wow.
Definitely have to do a watch party.
That's incredible.
Yeah, this is just
right. Well, shoot, I do have now. If Tails would like to give me the permission, I wanted to. You want me to show them the song now or later?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it because that can be heard on
Song.
Spotify. So yeah, we
So,
actually got
you
something.
did bring
he's
it
got
up.
something for you. So
I'm gonna trade. I want to trade for the episode. I got to trade for you. So you did bring up the Heroscape. You mentioned the theme song, right?
Yeah.
And I imagine that had the same person that worked on or like was it DreamLink Entertainment? Is that the person that you worked with? the group?
So I think Todd. I actually think that. So for things like Duel Masters and Transformers,
Right.
Original intellectual, existing intellectual property that were being traded back and forth between Japan and the U.S. Our animation studios crafted and wrote their own music. So studio like Gonzo and Studio IG, all those guys, they had their own composers, and they would bring stuff over. But we also had North American music supervisors that would fill in because there's rights. Sometimes you could own things, sometimes you didn't. All this other, it's a lot. It's complicated. So for this though, it was an original production, and if I'm not mistaken, I think Todd basically just hired somebody here in the States to just score it. Just like,
that's
go
crazy
ahead,
cool.
have at it, man.
Yeah.
Because he was doing all basically, like I said, post-production teams take all of that stuff. They music, voice, special effects, and they mix it all together to make it sound and look like it should when you see it on a television. So I think Todd just did all of that stuff because it was a one-man show, just like Dave was a one-man show writing it, and I was basically a one-man show producing it. And we were just scrappy. We just had to be.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, so fun fact: there's a little tier system here, so I gotta present in two ways. First tier, I found the song. It actually exists on SoundCloud.
Oh damn!
Really fine intro here. So I'm gonna show you real quick. I'm not sure if you recognize the name, but it's under a composer named Chota Akatsuki,
then that might be from the animation studio.
Yeah, that's what I was
did
wondering.
our CG. He probably was hired by them to score some of this. Yeah, probably.
So let me go ahead, make sure the audio. I don't know if the audio is going to be bad. Can you hear that at all?
Not yet.
No.
No.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can switch audio.
Interesting.
Ah, okay. Is it? Hang on.
Yeah, I don't know why. Because we could hear the other one just fine from you. So.
Right. Weird. Oh, I figured it out. All right, restart.
Whoa! There we go. Yep. There we go. That's the thing.
Yeah, there it is.
It's a nice theme.
This is pretty epic, I'm not gonna lie. You know, Jeremy's people while he's pontificating.
Oh, mic's off again, Jeremy. No, it's dead. The mic is dead.
Probably because you're playing this.
Oh. Okay. Hello?
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
I guess that's the thing. Try to be still. Remain perfectly calm.
Test. Is it good now?
Yeah.
There we go. Now you're back.
Okay. Well, yeah, sorry about that.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool.
So yeah, I found the song. That was a really cool thing to discover because one of the main reasons why I hyperfixated on your webisode project was because of the theme song. Heroscape has never had a theme song before, right? And so I remember watching this years ago and was like, wait a second, there's a tune. And I can't tell you how many times I replayed it over and over and over and over and over because the song hit. The song hit. It was so good to me. I enjoyed, like, I love being able to write to theme and write to music and being able to have a Heroscape theme. Yeah, I mean, that's part of the work you all did, right? So, and I'm gonna close this so I don't ruin the surprise. When I found out, so Heroscape actually had kind of like a prequel arrival. I don't know if you caught wind of the crowdfund Hasbro tried to do to get it up first, but originally Heroscape was supposed to be a crowdfund, and then it became the Renegade project that they're working on now. But the crowdfund, during that time frame, I was working on videos, and I wanted to help. I was trying to help promote the crowdfund, get some people to fund it. And I was thinking, I was like, what are ways I can, how are some ways I can promote the game or promote the music, like promote the themes, try to get people to crowdfund, because it's like I got to somehow convince people to invest the revenue, right, to bring the game back. And it's like, what are ways I can do this? What are ways I can encourage the fans to do this? And I thought about that song. I thought about the theme song, and I thought about like all that stuff I wanted to do. So, as a result of remembering the song that you all had created, I got to commission my favorite metal guitarist from YouTube to make a metal cover of the Heroscape theme song.
Okay, then.
Would you like to hear that now?
Lay it on us.
Nice.
Let's go. So this is my present to you for the updated webisode that we've been looking for years. And this is on my Twitch, but I'm looking into trying to see if I can get the song accessible to others. Let's see if I have the right thing. I do. All right, you ready? I don't know if it's gonna be loud. So.
Well, it's metal.
All right.
Loud.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Turn up a little bit.
Turn up.
I can hear it a little. Can you hear me?
Yep. How's that sound? Yeah, I'm bringing my audio up a little bit. How's it sound to everybody out there in the
Pretty
chat?
metal.
Yeah.
It's metal. So, not gonna front.
Yeah. Yep. So
Nice.
that is based on the song you all made. So
Nice.
give you that. So this whole would have never existed without y'all. Just remember that.
It's got a little there's a great I don't know if they're still around, but there's a great band that was doing amazing work in the late 90s, early 2000s called the Mini Bosses. And it's 3 dudes. There's a guitarist, a bassist, and a drummer, and they did the most like metal covers of OG video game theme songs, like Castlevania and Ghost Goblins. Like it's rad, and this has that same vibe, which I'm digging it.
Yeah. Yep. So that is, and I'll send you a link to that too. I actually have the MP3 and everything, so you get to have a copy of the original song themed after your song. So, but yeah,
everybody in
thank you so
chat
much
likes
for...
it. Everybody in chat likes it.
Yeah, no, it's
and again, it's when you're making animation, it is it really is a massive group project. It truly is. It's the producer sits kind of in this producer sits in the middle, right, of this wheel, and then all of the spokes are all of the various parts and pieces that help deliver it. So Dave and my writer and animators, sound design, music, all of it all comes together to make that one wheel and all the different spokes. So we're just one piece of that puzzle. And a very small project, something like a Transformers or a G.I. Joe or Duel Masters, had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. And there's tons of people that were in our Japanese studio who were animating that, rigging and doing and just all of this is to say that at the end of the day, Craig, who is still, I know, part of the community, he was sort of the final arbiter. For reals. As sort of the brand manager, creative director of Heroscape, none of this. I was basically shepherding this project along and moving all of those pieces. I was the conductor of this kind of fun little symphony. But at the end of the day, if Craig wasn't happy, we didn't do it. And there were and there were multiple conversations and multiple calls to be like, you can't do this because, or this is not the right way to tell that piece of your story. And even though it was his story and he had a very clear vision about what he wanted to do, our job, the Hasbro team that did the animation, we were ostensibly the experts in that because we had done My Little Pony that had won Emmys. We had done multiple Transformers and G.I. Joes, and I had done directed DVDs in Latin America. That was our job. That was our full-time job. And his full-time job was making amazing board games and crafting great content in that sphere. So we had to come together on a few things to make sure that it was those marketing things to be like, yeah, I know we need to talk about this, but that doesn't make sense within the context of this piece of content. If we could do more, great. But we only have a finite amount of time to tell the best possible story. And so Craig, he ended up he approved the song, he approved the title treatment, all that stuff went to his desk. And so we worked really hard to make sure that the games folks really liked what we did, because at the end of the day, they were our client, essentially. And we had to deliver something to them that they were pleased with. Just making something that was kick-ass was our aim, and we did it. But they had to like it at the end of the day because it was their pocketbook that paid for it all.
Absolutely.
That's true. That's something a lot of people don't realize about working in entertainment in general. You're not like just George R.R. Martin just out there making up crap, whatever you wanted. It's you're definitely a hired gun in service to a different whoever your client is at the time. So it's definitely a very, very large effort with lots of cooks, and Craig was the dude. Josh was my conduit to Craig, and then
right, yeah, totally. Yeah. And this was quick. Again, from what I recall, this wasn't like a protracted again, it's an easy shorthand because Dave and I worked on it. Transformers was 52 episodes.
Right.
It was an entire year worth of cartoons. This was do this in 9 months or less. Go. So that we hauled on this thing. We did this quick. because again, it was probably up against a selling season, and we had to hit a particular key marketing dates probably for the product. So like we really had to turn this pretty fast to make sure that this thing really worked.
Yeah, I'm looking at 2 drafts here. My first draft to the 4th draft, which I think was probably one of the last ones, was literally a month. Was literally 1 month, which is pretty freaking fast for.
That
You're
is,
just,
yeah.
You just go, and like and again, easy
And that's
shorthand.
just a tiny piece of everything else that happens. That's the shortest part, I think, is getting that script in. So
easy shorthand for Transformers. We went back and forth on. We would get the Japanese delivered script, and it would just be. It was referred to in the industry as transliterated, which literally just means here's the most raw translation. The jokes didn't work. Nothing. It was just like it was words on a page. Dave and team would go and watch the episode, make sure lip flap, counted out and rewrote the whole thing. That would go back to Japan. Takara would have to say yes. We'd all have to agree. We did that 2 or 3 times for 52 episodes until it was right. And then, even then, when we got to record, it was changed. Because sometimes a line didn't work. If a dude your VO didn't work, you redid it on the fly. But this was just like, go, 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 go. Like it was just like, we just hauled.
And
that's impressive.
No, I was not Jeremy. Anything else when it comes to those prior events? Because I do want to before we do close tonight, because we're getting around an hour and a half of conversation, which is nice.
Oh wow!
But Jeremy, anything else about that past production process? Because I do want to ask a question about like future events and what's happening now. But anything else that comes to your mind, Jeremy?
I just, and the thing is, it's like I felt like at the time when I discovered the script, right? I was like the only person who read the entire thing, like because the script was posted. And people were like, "Oh, hey, I think we found a script of the webisode," and like I had gone through about a whole thread, and not a single person had mentioned anything. But then I was like, "Okay, whatever," and I start reading the script, and that's when I start finding, you mentioned stuff about the Great Forge and like all this kind of stuff, and I was just like, "Huh? What is it? Huh? What is?" And I went I was posting on the forums. I was trying to ask, I at one point I private messaged Colby, who he runs the forums, but he also worked on the game. He was the game designer for Wizards on their team.
That's rad.
I DM'd him, and I was like, "Man, can you explain to me the script? Because I'm like, I don't know what's going on here." Because I didn't know all this stuff. But like hearing the story now and having the time, just having this opportunity to talk to y'all, it's like you guys were the foundation. You guys were the foundation.
Well,
and
yeah, that was Craig was the foundation. I mean, I'm sure all of that stuff was from his volumes of stuff that were
right. It's
getting worked around there. But yeah, what you read there was basically just when a writer is unconstrained by reality, and
yeah,
and
I just do whatever I want. Like, well, I'd like to introduce all these characters and have all their backstory because it's so freaking cool.
And it was just it resonated with me as, and this is funny because I wouldn't come up or find a community associated with this concept till much later in the years. But in 2018, I want to say it was, I met a group of people who called themselves world builders. And then you're like, wait, what's that? And it's like, there's an entire community out there that just do what you do, but on like a planetary scale, where they just make planets full of things and they fill it with all these ideas. And they're just like, well, what about this? Well, what about this? And then they publish it online and they get paid to do that. And I'm sitting there like, bruh, like that's super cool. And it reminded me again of that script because like that was one of my key inspirations and is to this day one of my biggest inspirations when I'm working on the lore of Heroscape was your work. I still read it, man. You really gave me just so many years of happy, like, oh, this is the cool thing, like and I really want to, like, I guess thank you for taking and, working on that and having that passion. Because again, with you being there with Craig, you being there at the start of it all, and now I'm here 15 years later working with the same franchise. Yeah, it's. I want to
It's a
take
thing.
that
I
torch
could have
and
called
hold it
somebody
high.
else. I could have called.
Thank
Bates.
God you did.
I could have called Bates. I could have called Charlotte.
I was super jealous of Rubio that he didn't call me in for Duel Masters, man.
Exactly.
That was some fun crap.
I could have called. I could have called Eugene, but no.
Wow.
I called Dave.
And so I do hope that now that fans take the time to read the script. You know, we got a chance to go over it, or Tails got a chance to go over it the recent
Wednesday,
podcast. Yeah, or your last episode. So, like, seriously, check it out. It's like
it's
there's a
every
reason
writer's
why
dream
people
for
like
people
it.
to read their unhinged rantings. So
it is. It's just there was just so many cool things that really, and mind you, I think I mentioned it in our previous interview. We all found that webisode during one of the darkest times of Heroscape history because it was like months after they had discontinued. Right? We were sad. We were miserable. We were so we were like, bruh, our game. Like we were messed up. But reading your script helped us out. Like it gave us something to look at and be like, yeah, no, see, the game may not continue.
Well,
but the game spirit is still there.
And
the story is still there. You can still tell it, you know?
And Jeremy, this podcast like birthed from the Avalon Hill campaign, and once that got crushed like an egg, I thought, you know what, I'm not going to give up on this. I don't care if it never comes out. I'm still going to, because I saw the opportunity of continuing just talking about this, and here we are, how many years later.
The passion you guys have for the property is incredible. So thank you guys for keeping it alive.
I'd agree.
And 15 years.
I mean,
15 years.
No, it is pretty wild that this was one of the last projects I worked on at Hasbro, was this guy. I worked in a couple other things, but this was like and then I left and moved out here to California. And when you're talking about like people who world build, like that's what I do all day. Like that's my day job. And so like, and this is why I've been, and this is Dave's day job. And this is the stuff we've been doing for 20 plus, for me, so 20 years since Hasbro, since I met Dave. So yeah, this is like, it's pretty awesome to see things that, and I can go back in my history and Dave can go back in his history from, and it's funny you mentioned Tiernanog, Dave, because I have the figures on my shelf right here.
Oh my God. Those were good figures, man. And some fine toys.
So like Power Rangers in Celtic mythology, I was like, this was written for me. So like you can go back and you can find those moments, those touchstones of core brands that are foundational and transformational for certain generations, from Power Rangers to Transformers to G.I. Joe and My Little Pony. And Heroscape has become one of those core brands that has found this amazing fandom and has grown into something that is, on par with or is becoming like the Warhammers and the D&Ds of the world, where there's that deep love of character and battle and strategy and community. That's the biggest thing, is when you have a really solid community, that's what helps a fandom grow. And as Dave noted and Todd noted, we're super, super happy that we unknowingly have become part of this community by, this sort of like marketing. And again, this was why it was so interesting and exciting for us, because at my chair at Hasbro, we didn't look at it as just commercials. That was the real thing. The guy, I worked for a gentleman, his name was Steve Drucker. He was an executive producer. And the two other EPs, Mark Wiesenhahn and Cheryl McCarthy, they also had that same vibe. It's not a toy on a box and a shelf. It's a living, breathing character that we just happen to also be selling toys of. And so taking that tact is we brought that to everything that we did, from Duel Masters to Pony to Transformers to Joe to Action Man and everything in between. And there was a million brands that didn't get this kind of stuff, but we still did the hard work internally We still built those Bibles and wrote the real things and came up with great stories and crafted real three-dimensional things to help sell the idea that these mattered. And so that was always what we brought to the table, and bringing people along the road like Dave and like our other writers and our other producers and our other teams. We found those right people to do that with us, because they didn't approach this project as it's a commercial to sell a toy. No, I want to tell a great story. And that was always part one, was let's tell a great story. And Craig believed in that. And that's why this ended up working, because I will be honest, and if he sees this, he probably has the same recollection. He was very cagey and very protective, super protective of Heroscape. Like, he did not want this to be bastardized or given away, or like, this was his baby. Sure. And he wanted this thing to really pop off the way he thought it did in his head. And I hope, from what I recall, we did him proud, and he was very happy at the end of the whole process. But it took a little while to get across the finish line to make him feel comfortable that we weren't just going to phone it in. And that really was an important thing for us to, that foundational thing was to, like, we're not just going to give you some schlock. Like, we're really going to do this right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we absolutely. I mean, I worked many times with Steve and Josh, and yeah, that was the amazing thing about working for Hasbro and those guys in that time, was just the opportunity to play in these worlds, not just, hey, we're making a little thing here, but you had an entire expanded, milieu that everybody believed in. Each one had its own timeline and history and heroes and past, and it's really humbling to be. You talked about the key things that we remember from our youth or our childhood, the creative moments that sparked us. I'm humbled to be that for guys now. To think that, oh my God, we've done that. That's so amazing, man. Thank you for that. That's what any artist wants, is for their work to touch someone and inspire. And if I've done that, man,
that's why. And I really hope, like, with the Major Q11 bio that was launched, like, you can see that, you can take a time and read that and be like, no, we took the time to read your script and put those names in to his bio, because we wanted to make sure that it remained Alpha Prime core. And by far, with all my research, you have done the most Alpha Prime work. So therefore, it refers to your Alpha Prime. And I wanted to keep it that way, So I was just, and that inspired me a ton when I was in school. So I was like, yeah, no, I want to refer to that and bring that back up. And now that we get to work on it again, the stories are getting not retold, but the stories are continuing. Right? There's a continuation.
We'll see where it goes.
The current story that we're working on is taking place 5 years. It's a time script 5 years from the last time they were working on it. So we got all this gap of time to fill in, and let's see what we can do with it. So it's gonna be pretty good.
Yeah. You can rustle up a couple bucks. Dave's got
yeah. Well,
you've got the original writer right here. Guys, ready to jump back into the fray, man.
Heck yeah!
I'm definitely going to be communicating with you guys.
Hey, I'll definitely mention something.
Anyway.
That's awesome.
Throwing it out there.
Heck yeah!
But
thank you.
What are your guys' thoughts like now that Heroscape is back? I don't know how much you guys have looked into what Renegade's doing, but what are your thoughts on like future things? Because right now it's just core, just get the product out.
We're building it out,
the base
right now
a bit from the niche community that we're in, but to expand it to a bigger audience. But once that bigger audience is established, what do you guys think about what should be done? Like when it comes to like you say, marketing or as we would put it, content creation to drive this story and this game forward, this narrative forward.
So I do this all day. So I work on a little brand called Avatar. For Jim Cameron. And derivative media is something that is always on my mind in terms of the breaking out and crafting of new new worlds and new expansions and new derivative parts of your story. Gaming is a massive business. It's been proven out by D&D, by WizKids, with Warhammer, all of it. Like miniature gaming plus gaming as a whole, as a category, is poised for unbelievable growth. Wizard of the Coast right now is, I think, accounting for almost more than 30 to something percent of Hasbro's revenue. Like, it is a monster category in terms of the gaming world. It's a juggernaut. So I think having something that is customizable, that has interesting ways to play, has different factions from a collectability perspective, has, you can create your own kind of squad to play against others that have their own squad. I think Heroscape right now, at this moment, and Dave mentioned this before, it was a little bit before its time when it came out 15 years ago. From the game mechanics to the way that it was positioned to what they wanted this thing to become, kind of this, giant sandbox of everything and anything you wanted, from lizard men to robots to Valkyries to dragons to zombies. Now, people are primed for that. That's a thing. Like that, from Minecraft to Fortnite, where you have all of these different expressions where it's sandbox play. Now Heroscape lives within a world where sandbox play is de rigueur. It's part of everybody's vernacular. Like, everybody understands that. So I think establishing the game and then creating were this me, publishing would probably be my next big natural thing that I would go into. Is comics, graphic novels, prose. That would be the thing that I would explore from a storytelling perspective, because you can tell individual tales, you can do origin stories, you can do smaller arcs, larger arcs. You start building your story foundation, and then that becomes essentially your storyboards if you want to get into something larger and bigger. But I think but you start slow, and you have to have more lore, because people want to know, they want to understand, they want to dissect, they want to unpack, they want to be a part of that discourse. So that would be kind of phase one. And then phase two would be much larger experiences like animation or entertainment. But we're definitely not there yet. But I think story first, for sure.
Well, the good news is that's my primary responsibility.
That's his
We're
job.
doing Good Game Studios. That's my job. They have contracted me to work on narrative, and I help with clarity. I'm making sure everything connects to the classic content, and then I'm also helping lay the foundations for the current stuff that they're working on. So, for example, they contracted me to write the lore for the molten crustaceans, for example, which is a squad of lava crabs. They're literally crabs that bleed lava. And so I was writing I got to write the backstory for them, so that's what I'm currently doing with the but it's cool. It's really like, and again, because I knew, for example, David did so much work on the lore in the past, I was like, I want to do the same kind of stuff. Like, let's explode this thing, like just start making backstories for everybody. And I also actually Hasbro cut my word count. I lost some, because I apparently write a lot. So they were like, okay, we're gonna do less now, and I'm like, So my only negative experience this entire time with this job is the word count. I cannot. I hate word counts.
That old saying. Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry for the long letter, but I didn't have time to write a shorter one.
Right.
Editing, man, making those unkind cuts, kill your darlings. It's if it doesn't hurt, you're not doing it right.
That is good advice, honestly.
And David, David, what are your thoughts for the future then? Like in the same line that Josh was saying.
My thoughts are anything Josh Izzo says, because the man's he's the thinking man's plan boy. I think And as he says, that he does this for a living.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that you can't really leap directly into animated or live action narrative content at this point. There's just I think that streaming is so much in a crazy flux at this right now. People are still trying to figure out how to. We're back to watching ads in our stuff, because nobody could monetize it without the ads, and but yeah, it's much easier to sell something up if you've got starting out with prose and then comic books. They're a much more economical thing to produce than anything with animation. Even limited animation is way more expensive to do than a comic book, and a comic book is something easy to give people to sell out, sell when you're trying to sell the concept. It's a real easy format. That's why you see so many movies and things based on comic books these days. It's a real easy thing to wrap your head around. You can see how this will work in terms of a story. I think that's the right path. The only thing is what I would say, it's different when you're building from a game standpoint, but I know in the past when I've had pitches where people came in with too much lore, you want, okay, you're like way too close to this, and
you don't want to.
There's a balance.
If you're trying to sell it, then you have to sell to the room. But if you're talking amongst community, that's always great.
The more the better.
So there's this is something which will have multiple layers. From the core fan community to the people who are building the game to the licensing community that says, here's how many active players we have, here's the game's reach, here's how much money annually that it's bringing in, and here's the world that we've built. This is why you need to come and be a part of this. Comic book company, posters, whatever. Here, come to this. And then once that's established, and then you have a really good cadence of things, and you've said, here's some great stories, I've really invented some stuff for the main character, then you distill that, and you boil the ocean to whatever that core conceit is, and that one germ of idea is what you sell out to a Netflix or to 20th, or a Disney or whatever. That's that germ of an idea. But you got to start, but foundationally, story is king. Full stop.
Yeah.
All right, and let's see. Before
thank you for that.
Absolutely, it's good insight. Now there's a few comments here in the chat. I'm not gonna, unfortunately, I can't read everybody's, or we're gonna be here all night. But let me just see if there's any questions or any comments here. Let's see. Roseheart is saying, "What's everyone's favorite unit?" Now I don't know how familiar you guys are with the game, miniatures, but so
you got me on that one.
Question: What would be favorite characters? Since I know you're limited in the characters, but what do you consider your favorite character so far when working in the past?
On Heroscape?
In Heroscape,
we only had 3. Truly, we only had 3 characters.
Yeah.
So, I liked Raylan. Mm-hmm. I thought she was actually really well done because she was sort of our Wonder Woman.
Mm-hmm.
She had to be haughty, and she had to be aloof, but also kind. And there was Drake. He's easy. As Todd was saying, he's sort of the smart alecky good guy. He's the Bruce Campbell. He's the kind of smart ass hero. You've got what is it, T19? What's our robot?
Q10.
Q10.
Q10, analytical. He's data. He was our Borg. He's all about the kind of solution oriented. But Raylan was this sort of how do you make a god almost feel relatable, and not be cold and not be frigid, because you didn't want the kind of the haughty woman to be rude and mean and catty, because she could have come off as very catty because she talks down to Drake and she's giving him the business all the time. She's like, what are you doing, foolish mortal? It could be really shitty. But the way that they've crafted her, she was very human, but also crazy powerful. And I really liked that. Like that was I liked how that was built, because she could have come off as like, again, very stereotypical, like mean girl goddess.
That's awesome. So to hear that direction, and just like the fact that you did that, it kind of validates what we've done with her. I don't know. We are currently working with Raylan right now because as part our current story that we're telling, we actually took David's script again and used it as the basis for the current telling of Raylan's. She gets to achieve her vengeance finally after 10 years. This is what we're going with, because you wrote in the script that she lost her parents. You wrote that she was a child and she witnessed her dad and her mother being slain. And so I was like, ooh, we need to use this.
That'll do it.
And so, right? Tails, do you mind if I share my screen real fast?
Yeah, go
I just
ahead.
want to show the bio screen. That's it.
For sure.
I promise I won't take more time.
Oh, you're fine.
But I got to show you this one because we did this whole thing probably is culmination of David's effort because we definitely wanted to take that. So this is the current version of Raylan we were working with. She is now they actually going to be giving her away as part of a promotion event. So anyone that attends the World Championship 2025 this year, if they attend the event, they get to have her. She's part of the participation.
Figurine, a mini, like one of her figures.
Sure.
Yeah,
that's a great
right
redesign.
here.
Scroll
really
down.
cool.
That's what
that's
she
a
looks
great
like right now.
redesign.
Wow.
I mean, she was very like traditional Valkyrie, gold, silver. Like the addition of color is actually a really cool. That's rad. It's a good looking piece.
And the Red Wings are a reference to the cartoon that was like the cartoon that predates yours work, which was like in 2004. The stuff that was like really that was more of a commercial because it literally ends with buy Heroscape now.
That was literally just a toy
that
commercial.
was just a commercial. Yes. Yep. But they had her with Red Wings in that episode, so we kind of went with that, and then we also were using David's script.
It looks nice.
Let me see if I can real quick.
Try and
Yeah, right here. This direct line right here is from David's script.
Nice.
So I can say that was directly inspired by
it. You should call Gotham right now and see what kind of residual.
Hey, look.
They got lawyers. Boy.
Call Gotham.
This was based on a script that may have David's name on it. May have some association with it. Allegedly
it was all work
associated with David.
Dave signed
everything
away. That deal is that Hasbro's deals were bulletproof when it came to
absolutely.
That's fair.
Bulletproof.
Yeah, and the thing is, to make it known, we did take the time to what's the word? Oh, I'm switching screens again. I'm so sorry. I keep doing that. Okay, there it is. I'm also like running stuff in the background. But yeah, when we wanted to make sure it attached itself to the themes, and there's various versions of Raylan's out there. You know, there's the one in the cartoon, there's the one in the webisode, and then there's the one in the comics, and then there's Raylan is a huge. She's very iconic to the franchise, and so we wanted to make sure we did our part with this version of her, but in that same plan, grab references to all the previous iterations of Raylan that are out there. And I made sure, I was like, no, we got to make sure David's mention is in there, because David is the one that created her tragic backstory, you know, like we want to use that because now this year she gets to have her vengeance. So
nice.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yep. So I really wanted to share that bit because you just told me that whole thing about Raylan. I was like, oh, you don't plan for her. She's got stuff to do, but it's gonna be great. It's exciting to hear that you all had that same passion for her. Now it's like you get to continue that story.
No, it's well, here we'll wrap pretty soon, and then we'll have a backstage a little bit after to discuss whatever. But I do appreciate the comments for everybody. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to read everybody, but I do appreciate everybody hopping in the chat tonight, showing your support for these guys, for coming on, chatting with us. I guess we could just do like a final thought, final plug type thing before we wrap really quickly. Jeremy, do you want to start us?
Just a real quick, absolute, all only gratitude, honestly, for having this opportunity, for coming to meet with us. Right, there's a strange thing, right? I like to observe this. I like to keep this aware. Right, there's a strange thing that we have these content creators, we have these influencers, we have all these people on YouTube, we have all these people who make stuff and put so much work and effort into the work they do, right? And we applaud them, we praise them, we appreciate everything, but we have to remember it started with the animation studios, and you guys are the core, right? Like the YouTubers and the influencers and content creators, I don't think we exist if it wasn't for the opportunities to watch cartoons that you make. That you put out there. And I mean, heck, when you mentioned Duel Masters, I watched Duel Masters as a kid. I was obsessed with Duel Masters as a kid. So hearing that I'm talking with the guys that worked on Duel Masters is blowing my mind as I speak.
We are nerding out.
Right, I'm nerding out while I'm trying to talk about the brand I work on, but it's also like, but you did this too? What? And it's just, super cool opportunity to be able to do this.
Old.
Thank you so much.
We're so old.
Everyone says I'm old. Like at this point, what is age?
Oh man,
like what is age? Like
so many things. So many things.
But it means no. You are wise, have much experience, much skill level. But it is absolutely appreciated for your time. Taking time to come out here, talking with us. Thank you for recovering the webisode. Again, people have been begging for that for again, 15 years.
That's all Todd.
So
that's all Todd Kendall.
Todd has saved thousands of attempts to make that better.
I made him spelunk through years of digital detritus. Find that.
It just and the thing is, it's like it's so funny because if you go on the Renegade website, right, you go onto the story tab, you're gonna see a couple of images pop up that are like they're faded drawings of a sort, right? Those are original images that I took from the OG website because I went on the Internet Archive and downloaded them. And then I was like, hey, Renegade, this was the original art. We should make a reference to it. And they're like, sure. And then just threw it on the website. And I was like, oh, that's perfect. So, this is now becoming like this big opportunity to just show the value of archiving in general, because it's like there's so much tied to Heroscape that's associated with its origins, with its original brand, the original people that worked on it, and now this iteration, this continuation that we have in the modern era. It's wild. It's just seeing all this take place. But just genuinely thank you for your time and providing all of that to the community, because I know for a fact everyone that got to watch it today really appreciates you for doing that. Really appreciates you for being here, and just shoot. If that hasn't made me excited to keep working on Heroscape, I don't know what will. So I'm like, hopefully I can take this energy and y'all can tune into Renegade Con in June, maybe. There's no date. I don't have a date, but we know that's generally where they drop it. You're going to be able to see some of the new stuff that launches and know that I got to work on it, inspired by y'all. So
Sweet.
I really do hope you understand.
Right on.
Because you guys did a lot for me when I was a kid. So apparently a lot. Expected for me as a kid. Last thing I want to say, I don't know if you heard, but it was mentioned in the YouTube chat, so I'll go ahead and mention it here. We have announced our first crossover. In early 2026, we're going to be launching G.I. Joe Heroscape. So
Nice.
all the G.I. Joe characters are going to be arriving in Valhalla
Awesome.
with Drake and the rest of them. So
Awesome.
Wow, that's huge.
Go Joe.
Yep. So I get to work with that. I'm gonna try my best. I don't know. I'm like, that's a reference. I was very, very young. I watched it though. I mean, I watched all of this stuff, but it's like
I worked on
hope
G.I.
you
Joe.
get it.
G.I. Joe cartoons. I did G.I. Joe
That's he?
books. I did all the
So
G.I. Joes.
all that you worked on is now
You
going
just
to
call
be
me.
Heroscape as
Call me.
character. I just talk. Wait, we'll talk. We'll talk. That's awesome. Heck yeah. But yeah, just want to go ahead and let you know, the torch is alive and well. It is still burning
Awesome.
bright
Still
as
being
ever.
carried.
And yep, thank you for your contributions.
David or Dave.
Yeah, I'll turn your time. Yeah, let me.
Yeah,
I yield my time.
Yeah, you the time. Dave, go ahead and yeah, if you got anything to say or anything to plug, go ahead.
I got nothing I can plug at the moment because I've got NDAs and things, but I am working on stuff. Other than that, if you want to discover some old stuff, some old Hasbro stuff, go look at the pack-in for the Nerf N-Force DVD, because that's another thing that not enough people saw that was super freaking cool. Am I right, Josh? Yeah, that was nice. I love that. That was awesome. There's other stuff that Josh and I were working on that'll never see the light of day. That's even cooler, but you know.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, that's you know, for anybody, yeah, the stuff that never came to fruition. You're always like, oh, that was so good, you know. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you. Love you all. Can't wait to see what happens with Heroscape going forward.
Thanks, sir.
Appreciate the father of the great Forge of Tirata himself.
Yes,
no.
Go ahead, Josh.
This is it's been lovely to catch up. This has been getting the band back together again, as it were, is always fun. To reminisce on projects, older projects, and again, this was a day job. Admittedly, it was a job that everyone really loved and we had a lot of fun. But it was a job where I got to make cartoons and I got to work with amazing, talented people like Dave and like Todd. And we got to build really fun things. And you hope that you leave something behind you when you build those things. You really do. You hope that you've made an impression or you've told a great story, or part of your story lives on for other people to find something in that story. And it's gratifying that happened, and that there are folks that did like this, and it has found a home, and it has found a community, and that's gratifying, and humbling, and it's lovely. And I'm super appreciative that everybody still likes this stuff. And we had a great time making it. And, just keep everybody keep playing, have fun in Valhalla, and we'll see you there.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for showing up. And links in the description. It needs to be updated, but there'll be links in the description if anybody's watching this on replay or watching this on Spotify. All the Spotify listeners out there, we appreciate you guys too for listening to the audio version of this podcast. This was a very special one. And just to close, I guess I'll say that, and I told this to you guys via email, and it's something I said to Craig, Gen Con. Some people can say, like Jeremy here, can say that the story you developed within the game of Heroscape, this inspired me. This changed me, or this changed me. Whoever would say that. For me personally, though, going through this experience, it was a creative means to go through a lot of rough times for myself personally. It quite literally saved my life, and so forever have so much gratitude for you guys for making something to inspire us, and in turn, I also inspire others. I get messages from people often saying that what you said has inspired me. So that wheel just keeps on turning, and hopefully maybe sometime, like I said to you guys out there, this is our first time meeting, like me talking to these guys and meeting with them. Like,
well, I've met them before.
Well, me personally, I have not. So it's great. And
thank you. Yeah, thank you for being here.
I mean, Tales of Valhalla, be it stop motion animation, there's so much where I've read in the script and some of these webisodes to where the story is a bit different. It's definitely not canon. It's a lot of fun, very satirish, but there are beats that I picked up from the script writing and from the webisodes in the past that I pulled into that story as well. So thank you for the inspiration. Thank you. Thank God I'm still here and I'm still kicking. I'm looking forward to the future. So with that, I do thank everybody for watching, everybody listening. Like I said, backstage, there will be a backstage. I might show a few minutes of that backstage too, but you can, for anybody who wants to support this channel, there is a membership, or check it out on Patreon. Those links will be provided sometime in the future whenever I get the backstage out. But we were talking some stuff like pre-show. I'm going to talk some stuff post-show, like extra stuff. So anybody who wants to stay tuned for that, look for the information for that. And so thank everybody for watching. You have a purpose in your life. Find it. Pursue it, live it. And we'll see all of you next time. Later now.